we had a flood. Half the house was flooded due to a malfunction of the wash machine. Standard Insurance was called. They said they couldn't come out because they were too busy until later in the week. We gave them proof that we had had water extraction done. They did finally come out, took pictures, said they would call us back, never did. So we had to put forth the effort to call them, to ask them what they were going to do to help us. And basically, they said nothing, and that we had a cheap policy that only covered acts of nature. So a few days went by, another phone call was made, hoping that we'd get a better answer, and we had the same reply. You have a cheap policy, we're not going to do anything, it's only good for acts of nature. I decided to do a tub load of clothes late at night, put the clothes on, went back to my room, hour and a half, 2 hours later came out, half the house was flooded. The wash machine had malfunctioned, it was stuck on fill. So we had about 2 inches of water, and all over the tile floor, carpet was soaked. I picked up as much as I could off the floor, the rugs, I moved as much furniture as possible, tried to redirect the water out the doors. So, and by this time it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, so I called a restoration company, scheduled for them to come out about 8 o'clock to do water extraction. So the next, few hours later I get up. The water that was on the tile had evaporated and gone up into the walls, the baseboard, and the wooden cabinets. But the carpets and the furniture were soaked. So Monday morning, my mother calls Standard to report what happened, and they told her they couldn't come out because they were too busy, and it would be later in the week, like around Thursday. But in the meantime, they wanted me to send them a report of what happened and proof of the water extraction. They wanted to see the receipt. So I did all that. But in the meantime, I had to call another carpet company because the water was still in the carpet. So I called another company and had them come out. Later in the day, on Monday, Standard calls back and said, after reading the report, they would have someone come out the next day, Tuesday. And he did come out. And he took pictures, and he looked at everything that was affected, the carpets, the walls, the cabinets, the tile, and he said everything looked good, and he would take all the pictures back to the office and they would review them there, and he would get back with my mother later in the week. But they never called back, and so she had to call them. So she called them on a Friday and proceeded to have a conversation with an agent that pretty much told her that she had bought a very cheap policy and that it was only good for acts of nature. And she kept asking him, but what does my policy cover? And he would never give her a satisfactory answer. So she ended the conversation, and Monday, the following week on Monday, she called back again, hoping to get better answers. And they basically told her, no, we're not going to reimburse you for any of the money that you're out. No, we're not going to do anything for you. And again, she asked, well, then tell me, what does my policy cover? And he started picking and choosing paragraphs from various pages. And she would say, but what about this paragraph? And he said, oh, you have to go back 2 pages in your policy. And he was combining paragraphs, finding loopholes, and he was trying to confuse her. And then, basically again, he told her, you have a very cheap policy, and it's only good for acts of nature. And that's pretty much how the conversation ended. And in the meantime, we had to have fans brought in, we had to have deodorizers put down because the house was smelling mildewy, and even now, on humid days, rainy days, there's a sour smell where the water is still, up probably in the wood. But they've not done anything to make restitution, to contact her, other than asking her if she'd like to renew her insurance policy. So,